One line read. After the last meeting, I've been following the committee membership ordinance, and I'm in full support of bringing uniformity to them so that they're equal across the board. But I urge you to take a second look at the language, specifically the termination portion that states that mayor and council can remove members without cause. This language opens the door to abuse, such as kicking someone off a committee just for having a differing opinion than you do, and it has absolutely nothing to do with that person's committee work. The other thing that this ordinance leaves out, is, as it's written, is any due process. There's no opportunity to have that person be heard or to have a public hearing. They simply get kicked off without recourse. Many committee members work hard and spent countless hours on behalf of this town. I haven't teared up yet at Solitude, but I have bled there doing my work, and I've left a lot of sweat. If someone called you tomorrow and said, hey, you're no longer in council as of now, and there's nothing you can do about it, how would that make you feel after all the time, effort, and emotional cycles that you spent volunteering your time? I imagine you would feel pretty disrespected.
Paul Kuczewski, 66 Valley View. I apologize. I just wanted to come and speak about the tax assessor and the situation regarding the tax assessments. I know it's been discussed over the past year or two. I really didn't take a look at it until recently. And what I saw, I was very, very surprised. I don't believe that the assessor is following our 5-year program the way it's supposed to be done. So I did reach out to the Hunterdon Board of Taxation, and I had some correspondence which I sent to you guys this afternoon. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but what I learned is all borough properties are supposed to be reassessed and marked to market for the prior October market value. And then 20% per year are supposed to be inspected. And when I looked, because they're all public, you can look at people's properties. When I looked, there's houses that have never had their assessed value changed since as far back as 2017. And there's houses that have been increased by 40%, 45%. In addition to those inequities, prior to 2023, it's very clear that homes that sold were targeted. And you can see a house that had its assessed value increased by 25% the year after it sold. Their immediate neighbors were not even increased by 0.25%. Now in 23, something changed, probably because it was under scrutiny. It's been broadened. You know, my neighborhood got hit, but there are still neighborhoods, there are still homes that have had no change at all. So this program, I mean, if it was administered properly, I get it, how it is better than the traditional program, but it's not been administered properly.
Probably not a question that needs to be or can be answered now, but I was wondering if there was an ordinance about who can serve on the creative team. All I could find in any of the documents was the resolution establishing a creative team, but it doesn't say how members will be chosen. The liaison for the creative team swore me in as a member of the creative team, but then I was told, which I wasn't on the last committee that I was on, that I needed to have permission from the mayor. So I emailed the mayor and asked for permission to join the creative team, and I was told no, I would not be appointed to that team. Since other committees are by board, council vote, I don't know if that's true for that one too, because I couldn't find the rules for that. Thank you.
This part is not so much that I have to write, but I feel so deeply honored to call Highbridge my home. And I am so inspired here every single day. So I write. These days, my project is haiku poetry. It's a very, very short form, like me. I encourage you all to try it. It's really simple. It's 3 lines. The first line is 5 syllables. Second line, 7 syllables. Last third line, 5 syllables. And here's one that got born just the other day. I'm gonna count the syllables on my hands to make it simple. That's how I write too. Opening my heart to all those I meet today, here, home in Highbridge. Try a haiku a day. It's like a vitamin for your spirit.
Ending Chapter 8, Boards, Committees, and Commissions. Motion to open the public hearing.
Move.
were made recently to, one ordinance that raised awareness that there were some inconsistencies, and that's all we're trying to do. I don't know if Barry would like to add anything to this?
No, I think that it makes sense to have all of the committees governed by the same rules in this regard. And what those rules are, obviously you can decide, but, it just doesn't make sense to have different rules for different committees.
Or to take the governing body out of that decision-making altogether.
Well, that's a decision for the council to make, you know what I mean? But, certainly, all but I think 2 or 3 of your committees were governed by the same exact rule, that council, and based upon the premise, the council appoints people, the council can remove people. So, since virtually all of your committees were governed by the same exact language, you know, that without clause language that was mentioned during public comments, I think that the proposal is to bring the other 2 or 3, I don't remember how many committees had different language, just bring them into the same language, have the same language as all the other committees already have. So it's not a major change in that regard.
I think all the committees should be in line too, but I think we should do more and have a code of conduct. And a question I had is, why are the committees 6 people deep? Could they be changed to 3 people deep? I'm not, you know, it doesn't take away from volunteerism by how many people are on the committee, right? You're just assigned in a position, but that doesn't stop volunteerism. So just a thought, you know, just kind of change out some of these, you know, having so many heads or so many cooks in one kitchen. Maybe just have 3 cooks in that kitchen for a committee. Doesn't change volunteerism. I mean, Matt, you're still gonna show up whether you're sworn into the committee or not, aren't you?
The committee is a volunteer that I would as a committee member. You know, I as a committee member, I feel committed to go to make sure I'm at the meetings, to participate, to put in the blood, sweat, and tears on a regular basis that I was talking about. So.
Would you say you feel privileged to be on that committee?
Would I say
To
I
be
feel
appointed to the
privileged?
committee?
I'm not sure that I feel privileged to be on the committee. It makes me feel good that I'm doing something for the town. It certainly is fulfilling for me to be on the committee.
I agree with Matt with regards to having some language. If we're gonna remove somebody, it should be for cause, not personal vendetta or whim.
Yeah,
People,
and I agree with that. I'd like to add to what Alan's saying and to what Matt is saying. Adding, you know, with cause, it doesn't take the governing body out of the process. It's just giving that person the opportunity to understand why they're being removed and then making that decision based off of that discussion.
Well, again, it's always been without cause, so I don't really know that we need to change that. Again, we're just trying to bring things consistent at this time.
with cause would be a very good addition to the rules for all committees, for removal of a committee member.
So Steve,
Oh,
I'm sorry, no, go ahead, I thought you were finished. No, I'm more interested in the code of conduct discussion, because I think these things kind of overlay with each other. Do you have any further thought on that, or it's just something you want to mention?
Just something I wanted to mention. I mean, I don't have any examples of code of conduct to show you this evening.
I've looked at a few, and some of them are quite extensive. And if you'd like, I'll send them to everyone, and we can review them down the road for talk about that. However, right now, I do think that just getting these in line is
Listen to the recording, they'll have no idea. We see you, we know who you are, but they won't know if they listen to the recording.
Paul Kovashevsky, 66 Valley.
It's for the recording.
So, what is the urgency to align this right now? I'm just curious. As opposed to, you're talking about, well, we can have further discussions down the road, but is there an urgency, I mean, is there a reason that it has to be done now?
A situation has come up where it brought it to our attention that, the language needs to be consistent, yeah.
What was that?
But is that an incident between you and Al Schweiker? Like, is that the elephant in the room?
No, it's an issue with the committee as a whole.
I can tell you that being moved around in committees, that I brought this up to the mayor because I'm like, wait, these rules here, these rules here, these rules here. I think if somebody on council is a second or covering somebody else, they should be able to go to those meetings and understand that they're operating within the same guidelines. So that was my position on it.
No, and I agree that you wanna have consistency, it just
Right.
makes sense, but you wanna have the right consistency, and why vote something in and then evaluate it after the fact? Why not just if there's no real urgency, why not just evaluate it, work it out, get the right thing across the board, and do it all at once?
Well, this is the right thing, because it's been the language literally for decades.
Just because something's been language for
Well, it
decades
was
doesn't make it the right
specifically
thing.
removed, now we're adding it back in, that's all.
And
But I've
we've been
heard
talking about this
counterpoints
for
to that.
for
I mean,
months.
I know, but the truth is, it was language that was in the ordinance, was taken out, and now we wanna make sure it's back in.
I mean, personally, that without cause, why do you need that power without, why do you need to be able to get rid of volunteers without cause? Like, why? Why wouldn't you want to have cause? I mean, what, just because you want absolute power, so what I say goes? I mean, seriously, why? Think about that. That's all.
Patience is a virtue, and there is no urgency on this unless you want to explain to the public what the urgency is.
Just making things consistent.
Making things consistent can happen in the next meeting. We can clear up the language between this meeting and next meeting, put in language that respects the volunteers and doesn't make them feel like they're gonna be axed on the whim of council, right? Don't you think that's
I don't believe it's ever
important?
happened, but, okay. It's
But
always
let's-
been without
but
cause, and
let's
it's never
protect what's
happened.
going to happen and what could happen in the future with what we're doing today, right? If we're enacting rules today that could enable that kind of behavior in the future, let's take care of it today, or between now and next meeting. There's no urgency to this. And just because this, the language said one thing for years and years and years, gosh, I mean, are we not progressing as a society, let's.
Cause, I did not write that, I have no, horse in this race, if you will, in terms of with, without cause. But I suspect that it was included to protect the borough from lawsuits, by some person who was removed from a committee, claiming that you didn't prove, that there was cause to remove that person. That you didn't meet whatever standard you wanna create, and most ordinances that say you have to have cause, they don't define it. And so you're gonna leave it to a court if you have some committee member who is litigious and wants to sue the borough. So I presume that without cause was included so as to protect the borough from those types of lawsuits and protect it from attorney's fees. And, I'm doing myself out of, little legal fees here if there is a lawsuit, but I think that that's probably the reason that was included originally, if I were to give my best guess about it.
Patience with this, I've had a couple of council members say that maybe we should wait, maybe we should look at it before adopting it, but much like the last time, chapter 48, that something was voted on and said, we'll look at it again later, whenever anybody wants to look at it, you shut them down. So if this goes in and somebody brings up, well, maybe it's time to look at a code of conduct, maybe it's time to look at what for cause means, or maybe we should put that in, it's like, no, we already did that, we voted it in, and there it is, and that's where it's gonna stay.
Manning Court, all I would say is it's a long time volunteer. I think anything that you can do to show that the volunteers, because as we all know, it's hard to get volunteers, it's hard to keep volunteers. Just like with the fire department, the rescue squad, all of those types of things are so important, and all the other committees that do a lot of the work that the borough cannot afford. We wanna make sure, I appreciate what you're saying about less members, but I actually think having that number of members is the right thing, because it does, as Matt pointed out, give you ownership and makes you show up to the meetings and wanna, fulfill the best you can. But I also think that, that with or without cause is a big deal. And with cause should be something that should be put in there, because what are you saying to your volunteers? And, as we know, it really is not easy. As somebody who volunteers at a lot of different places, it's the same faces over and over and over again, no matter what you're doing.
Ken and I have been talking about it for months, just to get everything in line, that's all.
2023-029.
Move.
Roll call.
Is this something we can table?
the move?
There's now a motion on the floor to vote on it. You could table it, you know, if, they're willing to withdraw their motion in second. Although, actually, no, you can always move to table. You can always move to table, and if the council were to vote to table it, no, I'm not sure now.
It's hard to table it afterwards, it's adopted.
Correct.
That's correct.
So, roll call?
Earl? No. Graham?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Schwartz?
No.
Silvestri? No. Barry?
No.
Okay, I'm interested in why.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I guess
So,
too.
so the federal government wants to start a pilot program to put 6 axles on a truck and increase the weight from 80,000 pounds to 91,000 pounds for a period of 5 years. The states that are included in a pilot program can set whatever regulation where these trucks are allowed to go. The federal government is suggesting just put them on the interstates and then let them go from warehouse to warehouse or port to port on the interstates. So with the amount of cargo moving in this country to add 11,000 pounds on a truck, to me, it doesn't seem to be that bad of a deal. So,
If we are just, I'm not sure, I assume that you saw this, the county is really asking for some support around this in view of all our historic bridges and already the, you know,
so again,
infrastructure that's
the
added
state
weight.
can, as they do now, there's weight restrictions on bridges, there's weight restrictions on
Yeah.
roads. And if the state decides to let this happen, then just keep them on the interstates and let them go from the interstate to the warehouse and let them go again. You know, there's no bridge restrictions in this town.
Not for anything, but I drove Route 78 every day for 40 years. I don't really want another 10,000 pounds on my butt.
Listen, just
I understand, and
everybody in
it's-
this town comes from somewhere else and goes
Yeah,
somewhere else
I
to
know,
work.
I
You
know.
not many of us are fortunate enough
Yeah.
to work close to home, so that's all. I just feel
Yeah,
different.
that's-
Guys, there is
It's gotta be roll call.